Okay, you guys, I think we'll get started. Just because I want Manny and Treyas to have as much time as possible. Again, you were probably just coming back from the mandatory session. Welcome, you guys. This is Designing a $1 Million Idea with Treyas and Manny, and I'm really happy to welcome them and also kick this session off. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the chat. Myself, I'm in there, as well as Ritzel, who will be helping me out today. We have some fun stuff planned for you, but yeah, if you have any technical difficulties, anything that you're concerned about, please feel free to message me and we can definitely work on it together. Without further ado, I'll pass it off to Shreyas and Manny. Thanks you guys for being here, and I'm really excited, really looking forward to your presentation.
All right, I will start screen sharing. Let me know if you can see this. Is all good?
All right,
Yeah,
it
you're
looks
just
like
a
we're all
little
set.
quiet, Manny.
Oh, a
Maybe
little
just on
quiet.
my
Okay.
end.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, Shreyas, whenever you're ready.
All right, welcome everyone. Today we are going to be going through a workshop which teaches you how you can design a $1 Million Idea, a workshop by Ontario DECA. So to get started, we can do a quick introduction between the two of us. As some of you may know, my name is Shrey Suri and I'm your outgoing chapter development officer for this year. I'm going to be headed to McMaster University next year for health sciences.
And I'm Manny Powell, and I am a grade 11 student currently going into grade 12 at Unionville High School. And this is my third year in DECA. And yeah. So we wanted to start off by first introducing the idea of the history on design thinking, because one of the main focuses we're going to be talking about today is a lot of the historical facts, because that is something that's really important to understanding the whole idea of design thinking. So it was developed in the 1950s by someone named John E. Arnold, and it was then refined by L. Bruce Archer, and it just had an overall process from the 1950s to the 1960s of this whole refining of the design thinking. I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. We're not going to be going through the design thinking history. That's not relevant to us today. What we're really going to be focusing on is how you guys can apply design thinking to make your $1 million ideas.
So in terms of a quick agenda, we're going to start off with what is design thinking. Followed by that, we'll go to where it's used, and then how you can use design thinking with some components and examples. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a challenge activity where you're going to be breaking out into different groups and working on a problem. So without further ado, let's get started.
Alrighty, so just before we begin, we wanted to bring up a quick quote about design thinking said by Steve Jobs. Obviously, everyone knows him. He's creator of Apple. And he said that design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. And that's something we're going to be stressing a lot in our presentation today because it is a really important concept of the design thinking process. So just keep that in mind while we're going through our presentation.
So firstly, what really is design thinking? Well, at its core, it's an ideation process to design better solutions to any given problems. Now, the key fundamental aspect of design thinking is that it allows you to find more creative or unconventional approaches to any given problem that might not initially come up. So it's really about bringing new and innovative ideas to the table that solve the problem in a much, much better way. And that's what sets it apart from other techniques.
So, firstly, let's go over some of the main reasons why startups, products, and campaigns fail. So, one reason is that there's already an existing solution. Whatever product this company or startup has defined already has a solution that is better. And if this company cannot offer a better solution or a more efficient and effective solution, then it won't have much of a market as it has an already established competitor. So, that can cause a startup to fail. Now, another thing is that there is no problem in the beginning. So oftentimes companies may come up with a problem that they think is a problem, but when it comes to like actually viewing it from the customer's perspective, the problem actually doesn't exist or it simply isn't large enough. So there isn't much of a market for that company to actually pitch their products to. So those are two of the main reasons as to why products, startups, and campaigns end up failing.
Now, what does this really translate to? Well, there's three key aspects. Firstly, it leads to having no market, as many mentioned. The next point is having too much competition, meaning a very, very saturated market. And lastly, creating an idea that is simply not feasible. So we'll open up to the chat for a quick question. Is anyone familiar with the company Juicero? Juicero was a startup that launched on Kickstarter, and essentially what they were pitching themselves as was an alternative to traditional mixers by using smart technology and a directly shipped juicer packet. What happened was that this juicer was $400 and it was $50 a bag to just get pulped up juice. Now, this company failed about 6 to 7 months in when they actually got their Kickstarter campaign. And it really goes to show that the solution they're providing was simply not being rewarded by the market. And it wasn't something that was a real problem for end users. So that's why design thinking is so important.
All right, and just reinforcing what Shreya said, we really want to emphasize why design thinking is better than all of the other conventional techniques, and 211% is why design thinking matters.
Now, you may be wondering, what does this 211% mean? Well, that is the index between which companies who used design thinking outperformed the rest of the S&P 500. For those of you who are not familiar with the S&P 500, it essentially consists of the top 500 best performing companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So if you could simply use one fundamental strategy and increase your performance by 211%, you would definitely be doing that every single time. And that's why firms that use design thinking always win.
So what are some of the actual examples and actual companies that are using design thinking and succeeding? Well, we have some of the biggest names here that most of you guys should be able to recognize that use design thinking. So we have places like Toyota, Apple, Microsoft, Samsung Electronics, Bank of America, PepsiCo, and Nike. So these are all various different firms and companies that are using design thinking and are succeeding in what they're doing. And as you can see from the wide variety we have here, design thinking can be used across any industry and field. Whether this is sports marketing, to finance, to engineering, it really doesn't matter what field or industry you're partaking in. Design thinking can be used to come up with your business idea and reinforce your business model to make it as customer-centric and as successful as possible.
So what does the design thinking process look like? Well, it's essentially 5 very easy steps. Step one is empathizing with your end user. This is also known as the customer discovery process, but it's trying to understand the problems that your customer might be facing. The next step is defining the problem in a clear human-centric manner. This acts as a guiding step and lets you know exactly what you're trying to solve. From there, you go to the drawing board and try and brainstorm as many ideas as possible and come up with potential solutions to the problem. After that, you go directly into prototyping and building a minimum viable product. This allows you to have an idea of what the constraints and limitations might be, as well as prepare for actual real world testing. Where design thinking differs from a lot of other strategies is it's a very agile technique. So that means you're immediately going to be going out and testing it with real people, talking to real people right from the get-go. Now, if you compare this to the way maybe you do school assignments, which is you have a set deadline, you work towards it, you get a ton of stuff done, and then you submit on a day of. Where design thinking is different is that there's no relative project deadline, but it's really an iterative, continuous process where at each step of the way, you're trying to build a functional product and continually improve it. And this really allows firms that use design thinking to be very lean and agile and access exactly what the customers want and what the market is demanding.
All right, so let's put this a little bit more into perspective and give you a practical example. So let's take the role of the CEO of a new razor company. So just imagine yourself in the footsteps of the CEO of a new razor company. And of course, as we're going through this, you can follow along with each step. And Shreyas will also be asking the chat for some suggestions and inputs on some of our steps.
So, as a CEO of a startup, the first thing you're going to be doing is empathizing with your target customers. You want to look at people who currently use existing solutions in the market and see what they like, what they don't like, and what kind of issues they're feeling. And what this allows you to do is really observe their decision-making process as well as how they're dealing with the current problems. Another really important part of this step is setting aside whatever assumptions you may have and gaining real insights as to what the customer wants. Often what happens is when you're running a company or developing a new product, you get so attached to your own idea that you forget that you're developing this for the end user. And if your idea isn't solving what the end user wants, it's not going to be successful in the marketplace. So this whole step is really about understanding what the user needs and what the market wants.
All right, so looking at the customer discovery process in a little bit more detail, what we really want to do when we're using and we're going through this customer discovery process is use a scientific approach. And there's three key components to this approach. Firstly, you want to observe and define the issues, aka the problem or the market need. So looking at what consumers are really struggling with, what the main issues are, and what the market actually needs, and defining those issues. After you've done that, you want to develop a hypothesis about a solution to that problem, which is going to be your business idea. So whatever business model, whatever idea solution you come up with for the problem that you initially identified is going to be your hypothesis and the second step. And then finally is conducting the experiment to test your hypothesis. So this is just going to be validating your market through research, whether this is going out and talking to customers, providing prototypes, anything along the lines of experimenting and testing out your hypothesis with actual consumers to make sure that whatever problem that you have is actually a problem is going to be your third step of the scientific approach process.
All right, and now once again, reiterating why customer discovery and why this step is so important. It ensures at the end of this process that A, you've actually identified a real problem, B, the solution you might come up with will solve the problem, and lastly, it's really important because it identifies if the market is willing to pay for your solution. Now, going back to the Juicero example, yeah, maybe it was a great idea, maybe it was a really innovative solution, but the price of that product was so expensive and the pain that the users feel at the end of the day did not justify the price. If you're developing something that's really going to change your lifestyle, then people might be willing to pay an excessive markup. But generally, you want to identify that perfect range where people are willing to pay to alleviate that pain point. And now, once again, we have a quick stat for you, and that's 42% of businesses fail due to having no market need for their product, and that's according to CB Insights. So again, this step is really, really crucial. What we have for you next is some sample questions that you can use in the customer discovery process, and these help to guide how you're approaching the process as a whole. So the first one we have is just tell me how you currently go about XYZ. You can have this apply to any industry, any field once again, and it's just meant to be qualitative leading questions that help you identify real problems. So feel free to take a screenshot of this slide specifically. You might find these questions very useful. You'll notice once again that none of these really deal with anything that's quantifiable or anything that has numerical values attached to it, because what we're really trying to do is understand this from a consumer and user perspective. So generally when that comes about, it's more from a qualitative point.
All right, so back to our little role play we have going on here. So again, we're the CEO of a razor company, and here we have a regular razor consumer. So you can now meet Harry. And Harry has three main issues with the razors that he's using right now. He's tired of overpaying for these razors, he wants a better shave, and he wants to save time. So these are the three key aspects that we're going to be focusing on when we develop our solution and we go through the design thinking process.
So keeping in mind the information we receive from our customer demographic, we can now define our problem in a very clear and succinct manner. We want to have this a simple one-sentence statement that absolutely identifies what the problem is we're trying to solve based on our customer interviews. And this will guide us in creating features and act as an overall guiding point to get us in a general moving direction. So what we'd like to do now is open it up to the chat. Feel free to come off mute for a second if you'd like, but just tell us based on what the three customer discovery issues were, what would be your problem statement in one line? And yeah, perfect. Thank you, Manny, for going back to that slide. We'll open up to the chat. Anybody feel free. We'll give you guys a couple of seconds. You want to type it out, feel free to go ahead, or you want to come off mute, that's totally fine as well. Yep, so I see Nancy has said he wants a cheaper, more effective razor. That's good. We'll wait for a couple more to come in. So remember to try and identify all three of the pain points and have them in one statement. All right. Anybody else want to take a shot? We'll get a couple more in there. Okay, so I see Bodana says an affordable, effective, and efficient razor. Raj says he wants a cheaper, faster, and better razor. Prasun says more quality at a lower price. Mahmood says durable razor. Very good. We'll give us a couple more seconds. Tia says he wants a more convenient razor for a reasonable price. That's very good because it ties on a couple of the different points. Very succinct once again. We'll give you guys about another 10-15 seconds and then we can head forward. Ishrad says he wants a more efficient razor for a lesser price. So very good. You guys have all got kind of the general idea. What we'll do now is Manny will go over the problem statement that him and I came up with.
All right, so a very brief, very direct statement that Shreyas and I came up with was he needs a cheaper, more accessible, and quality razor. So basically everything you guys were saying in the chat, everything was bang on. Just a very direct, very simple statement that gets straight to the point. You guys will notice that, again, it's not very, it doesn't elaborate very much. It's not very specific, because what we really want to do with our problem statement is just define it in as a brief way as possible.
So after you've defined your problem statement, what it really comes to is start ideating potential solutions. This is where you start thinking of new ideas, start identifying alternate ways of viewing the problem, challenging yourself to brainstorm. This is a very hands-on step of the process. You're going to get your hands dirty, just play around with a couple things and see what sticks. So it's really important at the ideation stage that there are no bad ideas. A strategy that we actually recommend is even coming up with the worst idea and working backwards from there. So as a whole on this step, it's probably the opportunity you as a entrepreneur have the chance to be as creative as possible. And now once again, we're going to open it up to the group. If you want to come up with any ideas on how you would design a better razor or have a solution to Harry's problem. So we'll give you guys another about a minute or so before going on. And again, there are no bad ideas at this stage. If you want to come off mute, that's totally fine as well. Otherwise, we'll read out what we're getting in through the chat. All right, so looks like it's an afternoon. Everyone might be a little bit less on the creative side right now. We understand it's towards the last day of school. Yeah, a razor does not hurt the skin. A reusable razor, that's very interesting. That is from Mahmood, to make them cheaper in the long run. Good point. Let's see, an electric razor, make it smaller, less material is needed, and the production focus more on the effectiveness. Very nice. Triple blade, eco-friendly, cheaper materials to make it less expensive. All right, so all great ideas. Aluminum is light and costly using that. So very, very good ideas coming in from the chat. We'll let you guys go through that for a couple more seconds before moving on. Comfortable hold, something more akin to a foil razor. Yeah, so very good ideas coming in the chat. Make it with a material that won't wear over time. So all great, great points. And I think we can head forward and we'll give you some insight as to what were the ideas that we came up with to solving this problem.
All right. So amazing ideas, guys. A lot of the points you guys hit didn't even come to our minds, but the two main things that we came up with was more related to how the business operates as rather than how we create the razors. So one of the things was direct to consumer shopping. So what this means is that we're going to have an online e-commerce channel for customers to buy their products, and using that, it'll ship directly to their door, which hence will solve the issue of Harry wanting to save time. Now on the second aspect, we have mass manufacturing razors independently. So this is to cut out the middleman and prevent us from spending our resources on outsourcing in order to reduce costs. And again, reducing costs via things like economies of scale when we're mass manufacturing and start making a lot of razors. And also, as you guys mentioned, using less costly but durable materials and resources in order to create those. So when we reduce these costs, in turn we can reduce the price, which will then address Harry's situation of he doesn't want to overpay for razors, and also reducing the costs will help us use that saved money to make more quality razors, which gives him a better shave. So these two main things are what we decided to come up with in order to incorporate and solve all of the issues that Harry had as a consumer.
So the next step of the process, as we mentioned, is prototyping. So this is also known as the MVP, but it's essentially creating a very inexpensive scaled down version of the product. What's important about this phase is, once again, it's extremely experimental. So the purpose of prototyping is not only to investigate and examine the product as a whole, but kind of identify any constraints, any limitations you might be. So this could apply specifically towards a hardware product where you might have physical restraints, but also on the software side, because it lets you identify the rate at which you need to scale, what kind of industry demands you might have, what kind of database demands you might have. So all those things can be identified at the prototyping stage. And from then onwards, we have the final step, which Mandy's going to go over.
Right, and the final step is the testing phase. So the testing phase is really, I mean, we can call it the final step for now, but realistically, as Shreyas mentioned, it's a continuous process, the whole design thinking process. This fifth step really isn't the final step because you are going to be going back and refining your product. But what you're doing in the testing phase is essentially you're going to test the complete product using the best solutions that you've identified as a company with actual users. So whether this is a small group of consumers or releasing it to the public market, what you're going to be doing is allowing consumers to use this new solution that you've identified to then let them give their input so you can understand them better. You can redefine the problem, go back and make any changes that you may need to after they may have identified some issues, and just brainstorm more ideas, because consumers oftentimes they can come up with a lot more problems than you as companies can actually create. So this process is really important into just refining the idea and just making sure that it's as thought out as possible. So again, this isn't the final step, but it is a very important one to make sure that you are understanding what you can do to make your product as satisfactory for the customers.
So now our big reveal is that the scenario we've been going over this whole time is actually based on the real company known as Harry's. Now, Harry's was a startup that was established in 2017, and since then they've been extremely commercially successful and have had raging customer reviews. Essentially, what they've really innovated on is having a model where, firstly, it uses e-commerce distribution channels to ship directly to your door. They have a subscription plan which automatically analyzes past purchasing history to identify exactly when you might be needing a refill. Not only that, they've used their own proprietary factory based out of Germany to develop in-house blades that lets them cut costs and also use higher quality materials, which some of you mentioned as well. And overall, as a result of these practices, consumers have reported a much better shave compared to other conventional brands like Gillette. And in a way, Harry's has reinvented the traditional razor blade and cartridge model. So this goes to show how utilizing design thinking at a very large scale can not only challenge the status quo, but add additional value for consumers. And I think that's really what entrepreneurship and business as a whole is about at the end of the day. So what we'll go into now is a brief kind of segue into the pitch once you've actually developed a product and how you can really handle getting your solution out and selling it to other people.
Right, so after you've gone through the whole design thinking process, you want to pitch your idea, pitch your product to investors and consumers. So the three key aspects that you want to incorporate into your pitch is, one, having a catchy hook, so something that grabs the consumer's attention. What is going to grab their attention from, carrying on in their lives to actually going and listening to what you have to say about your product. Secondly, you want to define the problem statement. So why should the customer care about your product? What problems are you going to be solving in their life, and why are you going to be solving this problem? So essentially giving them the reason as to why they should be paying attention to you in your problem statement. And after that, the third and final thing is giving your solution to that problem with concrete facts and ideas and examples of how this solution is going to actually work. And of course, the most important thing, we can't stress this enough, is the USP, or the unique selling proposition. Now, the unique selling proposition is really just what sets your company apart from competitors. It's really showing the customers why they should care. Now, the problem statement that you had, it should again be very customer centric, showing why they should care and what's really in it for the customers. And the unique selling proposition is just emphasizing the core value that your idea provides and setting you apart from your competitors. So looking at some of the real life examples of unique selling propositions, statements like things like all natural and whole grain are examples of things that could be unique selling propositions. Obviously, we see it commonly now on things like bread brands, but if you're offering a product that hasn't been all natural before, that could be a unique selling proposition. Now, looking at some actual businesses, we have places like Death Wish Coffee, and they have their unique selling proposition of the world's strongest coffee. Obviously, not everyone will enjoy strong coffee, but there is quite a demographic for people who do enjoy that. So that's their unique selling proposition. Now, we also have the example of Saddleback Leather, and their unique selling proposition is they'll fight over it when you're dead. And it is something that's really catchy, it's something that gets your attention, but it also provides their unique selling proposition, which is the fact that they have a 100-year warranty on their leather products. So it gives them a nice catchy hook, but also shows people what they have, and they're promising 100 years worth of quality products, which is setting them apart from their competitors. So those are some examples of unique selling propositions of real life companies.
All right, and now what we have for you is our interactive activity. So it's a 10-minute challenge, and what we're going to have you all do today is design a better toaster using the design thinking framework we've talked about so far.
All right, so going into a little bit more detail, as Trey said, using the design thinking process, we want you guys to create a better toaster. And at the end of the time, choose one person from your group to pitch it to the rest of the attendees in 1 minute. So create a 1 minute pitch. And just to reiterate what the process is, starting off with empathize, then defining the problem, ideating solutions, and then prototyping. We're going to be skipping the testing phase because obviously we can't do that today. So just go through the first 4 steps. And we will be providing you guys with a link to a slideshow with all of your team numbers. So if you, once Maddie opens up the breakout room, there'll be around 10 people per breakout room, and whatever breakout room number is, your breakout room number is your team number. You can find that team number on the slides and then start brainstorming your ideas using the template that we've provided. So again, you guys will get 10 minutes to do this, and then you guys should have a person to come back and present a 1 minute pitch for which we will then decide a winner. So the breakout rooms should be opening shortly.
Okay, and I'll just put a little note. Yes, it's going to be about 11, 12 people per breakout session. And you guys will get that broadcasted link in just a second when you're in there. So I'll just open these up then.
And we'll be hopping in and out of breakout rooms as well to just help you out if you have any questions.
All right, everyone is coming back. Welcome, welcome. We hope you guys got some good brainstorming done. We'll give it like a few seconds just to make sure everyone comes back in.
All right, and I think we can start to have having takers in the chat. You can just say your team number and whoever wants to pitch. I think we have room for about 4 to 5, and then we'll have a winner announced. So anybody from any of the teams completely open right now. Whoever's ready to pitch, takers, team 9. Okay, and Anna, will you be the one pitching? So I think perfect. So Anna, whenever you're ready, you can feel free to come online you can have cameras on, come off mute, and it's your table. So if you want, Manny can also share the slide that has your team's info on it. But yeah, all yours.
Okay, so our idea, we definitely know that toasters are something that kind of are very practical, and people are kind of not really, most people we think are not looking to splurge on a toaster that's $400, so we want to keep it within a reasonable price, about 40 to 60-ish, and we were thinking to an average, I don't know, name brand toaster, we want to upgrade that by adding a colors to the range of, I guess, numbers at the bottom that people control how long the toast stays in the toaster to help for easy easy, I guess, visual use of how black is this toast going to get on a scale of not at all and very burnt and gross. And we were thinking that that would just help prevent too burnt toast or people not being able to associate, just kind of playing a guessing game of what is this going to do to my toast if they just kind of get a random number. And we were also thinking to just assist with that a little, some way to peep safely into the toast just to see if it's past where you want it or if it's not there yet. Or because I think a lot of people they know a certain color of toast that they want, if that makes any sense.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Anna. That was very thoughtful, and I liked how you had it from the customer perspective about the color. Very interesting. Just in the interest of time, because we have a lot of takers in the chat, we'll have the next pitches only the 30 seconds, and we'll have a timer come up. So I think what we have next is Team 8, and Murad, feel free to come off mute, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So for the main problem that we discovered with users and toasters, it was just your toast unexpectedly burning or not reaching the level that you want it to be concerning the state of how toasted it is. So for our prototype, we decided to go for an upper end technology-based toaster. So what it is it'll have a screen on the toaster indicating prompts of how long you should have the toast in for certain levels, whether it's like golden, crispy, or darker. And there'll also be a pamphlet with the toaster for like a broader market of older people who aren't aware of the technology. And it'll be an upper end toaster, about $65 to $75. That is more expensive than the average toaster, but you can only reach certain benefits. If you want efficiency, performance, or price, you have to pick two. We went with efficiency and performance, so our price range will be in the upper end. And yeah, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. I think we'll go for Team 5 next. And again, just in the interest of time, we'll have roughly 30 seconds. So Ashi, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right, so we've noticed a lot of problems, and one of those being safety, especially for children, because you don't know when the bread will come out, and it's kind of a surprise. And another one is not knowing the level of toast, if it's going to be burnt or stale or whatever. And it's often really messy, and there's a very unclear timer. Some people said that they have 15-second intervals, and those are not really efficient for them. So we want to have a toaster that ensures safety, consistent timing, and effectiveness. And for that, we would like to offer different options for different bread. And to make it more high tech, maybe you can select the options. Another one is having a customized digital timer, and for safety, when we want to make it cordless, because like people trip over the cord and it's dangerous for children. And lastly, and it can also charge itself through that. And we also want to have 5-second intervals so you can play around a lot more with the timing and it's a bit more efficient. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Very detailed. I think we have room for 2 more. So sorry, not everyone's going to get a chance to share, but we'll go for Team 10 with Ishrat. And again, 30 seconds. Whenever you're ready, take it away. Ishrat, are you ready to go? Or we can go with Team 7 as well. Justin, Lynn?
I'll go ahead. So
Perfect.
one of my favorite things to do when I go shopping downtown is actually go to the alley where all the cake shops are, look through the glass panels, and look at the products they have on display. And what I do when I look at that is I visualize my story with that cake. I visualize myself purchasing it, giving it to loved ones, seeing their reaction. And that just really demonstrates the power of the visual aspect of something. So how could we apply that to a toaster? Well, our team identified the main few gripes that consumers have with toasters. You don't know what the brown level of the toast is when you put it in, and also they get really dirty. So what we thought is that we have a device-compatible toaster that has an app that sends notifications when it's on toasting, but not only that, we feature glass side panels on the toaster so you can see the brown level as it's cooking. Additionally, you can see any burnt crumbs that are collecting on the bottom of the toaster, and it allows for easy disassembly while it's unplugged, so you can clean it out. So not only will this be relatively cost effective because it doesn't feature a screen, just a simple computer, it tackles the problem of safety, the correct correct brown level, and also keeping your toaster clean.
Very nice, Justin. That was very detailed again, and I think we have room for just one more. So I want to make sure it's in order. So we'll allow, I think, Team 10, Ishrad, if your mic is working now, you can go ahead and take it away. Oh, Mahmoud, yeah, Mahmoud, take it away.
All right, I guess I'll go. Okay, so we are revolutionizing the normal toaster, the conventional toaster. Instead of being vertical, it's gonna be built horizontal. So as soon as it pops out, it's gonna go onto the plate straight up. This is absolutely genius. We're gonna also implement an analog timer to make it cheaper. It's gonna be from the cost range of $30 up to $60, so this is perfect. It's also gonna have inside, like the grills, it's gonna be lined with a hatch mark type of pattern, so that it sets us off from our competitors, and it's gonna have a tray so that whenever there's crumbs, it's gonna like go on there and it's gonna be easy to clean and detach. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, thank you everyone for those wonderful pitches. Now we'll move on to our winner. Let me just share my screen.
Can we get a drum roll, please?
There's a
Man's getting
drum
set
roll
up.
in the chat. And whenever Trace is ready, you can let me know.
All right, I think we're all set, Manny.
All right, and Trace, there you go.
And the winner is Team 7. So Justin, you guys were pretty succinct, a little bit over time, but that's all right. And what we really liked about your idea specifically was it put the customer right as the front of center and really prioritized specifically what they needed through your glass design and using those really innovative technologies and approaching it from a new and unconventional way. So congratulations to Team 7. Let's get some claps in the chat.
Wonderfully done. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So thank you guys everyone for coming out to the $1 Million Idea Workshop. If you have any questions, our emails are listed right there, and obviously the Instagram at Ontario Deca. You can feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. But thank you guys everyone for coming, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, guys, feel free to reach out to Manny and Treyas if you have any more questions. I know we had to cut it off a little short. This was a lot of fun. You have 2 more sessions coming up that you can choose from, so keep your eye on that, and we'll see all of you shortly. Thank you so much, Manny and Treyas. That was awesome. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to email them. See y'all later.